If that has been changed, Sophia, are there any other items anybody wants to bring up?
Thank you for changing the minutes. Thank you.
I remember you were here. Right. We move on to, well, 5 is a Small Heath Park environmental improvements. We have not had the report on that, so we can't really discuss it without the details. So that will be put to a future meeting once that's been completed. Right, so number 6 is Hunters Hill College closure. And that is died on that.
That's me, Councillor. So this is Zahid Mahmood. I'm the Capital Programme Manager for Education Infrastructure. So this is the report that we've brought on several occasions to the Trust and Charities Commission. Hunters Hill, the site was used as a previous school. It's not been in use for nearly 18 months, nearly 2 years now as a school, and it's surplus to education requirements. So we wanted to kind of relinquish the site back to the Cropwood Trust. At the meeting around over a year ago, it was said that we needed to provide vacant possession. Vacant possession has now been provided, and what this report is recommending is that we hand the site back on the 1st of April to the Cropwood Trust to be managed via BPS.
As in the security of the site, which I know education has been covering, and there's no money in that pot or in the other pot to continue that. But I can see that the hold up is with procurement. Nigel, is there any further information on that?
Good morning, Chair. Yes, we are progressing with the procurement of advisors to provide a report back to Trust and Charities. That appointment should be made within the next 2 weeks at most. That should give the members of the committee position on the future uses of the site and its disposal. In the meantime, we have to report that Trust and Charities doesn't have any finance to operate this site, and as I understand it, Property Services will also decline to take it, but that's a discussion that Education and Property Services can have. In the meantime, we still have to rely on Education to meet the costs and provide security for the site, and that's the usual arrangements for surplus sites, and that should be resolved as soon as possible hereafter, subject to committee report agreeing to the findings of the advisors we appoint.
Thank you, Councillor. I think a bit slightly disappointed that it's going to take another 2 weeks from an education perspective to appoint an advisor. Like I've said, we bought this report when we declared this site surplus from an education perspective nearly 2 years ago, and at that stage it was clearly identified that an advisor needed to be provided. So we're 18 months on now from an education perspective, where we've been using funds from our portfolio to secure the site, albeit we appreciate that there wasn't vacant possession, so we took on the undertaking to get vacant possession. Now that we have got vacant possession, I think from an education perspective, there was more than enough time for that advisor to have been appointed and a view provided to the trust in terms of how to move forward. I think it would be difficult for education to continue to fund the site security. If it was a site that was in the educational portfolio, we would end up being able to recoup some of that funds back into our portfolio to continue providing sufficient places and maintaining the education estate. But because this sits within Cropwood Estate, the trust, we would not be privy to any of that capital receipt. So continuing to fund that now that vacant possession has been provided would be difficult from an education perspective.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I was just going to ask just for clarity really about the survey cost and independent external advice, because it says the committee will commission on the report, advise of real costs and costs. So are we liable for any costs related to this? That's the first one. The second two parts to it are there any interested parties who have shown any interest by local councils or even Bromsgrove Council?
I know there was some interest shown, but it's very early stages from the council. But Nigel, do you want to answer the first point?
Thank you, Chair. I only caught some of that. The audio was a bit twisted. There has been interest shown in the site, as I say, not very recently. And I think only one of those were interested in using it as a school. The others were looking for its, development potential. And we have had a recent application to bring forward one of the buildings known as the stables. Those can all be addressed as part of the future decisions by committee. I think we recognise that there has been delay in appointing the external agents. That's slightly down to procurement. And we also do recognise there is a budget pressure for education here, but there isn't an alternative funding mechanism to secure this site.
Okay, I mean, David's first point is if we are liable for any costs.
Well, at the moment, obviously, as I've said, the position is that properties which parts of Birmingham City Council wish to declare surplus will stay with the outgoing service until such time as disposal can be arranged. And that's not any different that we're asking here. And trust status doesn't really affect that, but obviously that's a discussion to be had. At the moment, we must thank Education for continuing with their security of the site, which has been exemplary. There have been incursions onto the site, but clearly there would be much worse if Education weren't providing that security. And I think the issue is that now that conversely, now that Education have arranged for vacant possession, the site's even more exposed, and therefore security needs to be continued for the time being.
Guy, did you want to come back in?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've rehearsed the security issue. So from an education perspective, and then if that's the view, I'll have to take you back to my director and also my cabinet member, because it, like I said, Council, it's coming out of a pot that's really used for maintaining schools and also what you call providing sufficient places. So having a budget to maintain surplus properties isn't within our gift unless it was an education property where we could recoup some of that kind of capital investment to offset that security issue. So that's something I would need to take back. In terms of interest in the site, I have made Phil Andrews aware of a recent interest that's come forward for the site from Located, who are the DFE's property arm that look for sites for free schools, etc. moving forward. So I've put them in contact with Phil Andrews from Birmingham Property Services to start them negotiations. And Nigel, I've also given them your details so that them discussions can take place from a kind of disposal perspective or an interest perspective.
Okay, I'm happy with that. So I do note that Phil Andrews has put a meeting request in my diary this afternoon, so hopefully that's going to cover that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I do understand the position of Education. We're in rather a catch-22 at the moment, I'm afraid. So I've got to ask members, do you agree with the report and we continue with the security from Education until such time as there's a disposal? Yeah. Okay, thank you. We have no alternative, you've got no more. It's literally, hopefully, only going to be a very short time. And if discussions with the cabinet member they want to discuss with me as well, then please feel free to do that.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, the next item is the Highbury Estate update in Chamberlain Highbury Trust. David Kidney.
Hello, Councillor. Hello, all the councillors. Hello, everybody. My name's David Kidney and I chair the trustees at Chamberlain Highbury Trust. And the big picture is that we are a charity, arm's length from the City Council, though the City Council does appoint 2 of our trustees. And our mission is to amass the funds for a full restoration of Highbury, both the mansion and the gardens, probably over £10 million in cost. And then at the end of the restoration, to take from the City Council a very long lease of the property so that we take it off the council's hands effectively. So far as today is concerned, it's about bringing you up to date of where we're up to and asking about our funding for the next financial year. And I'm joined by my fellow trustee, Mike Williams, who's also our treasurer. And I'm going to ask Mike to take the lead on taking you through the report. Mike.
Thank you, David. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's been the position since the Chamberlain Highbury Trust was created some 6 or 7 years ago for this committee to provide the necessary financial support to enable us to operate legally, and that funding comes from the council's Highbury Trust, and that funding covers things like modest administrative support for the trust, buying the necessary insurances, audit fees, and so forth. But more significantly, funding to enable the house to be open to the public, to satisfy the Highbury Trust Charities objectives, and we've seen that develop over years. In a very significant way, and of course there was a point when the City Council was subject to criticism from the Charity Commission because the house wasn't open to the public in the way that the charitable objectives would have required. So this report, as David Kidney says, is primarily about our budget for next year, the financial year 2023-24, and our budget is set out in paragraph 8 of the report, and totals some £33,300, and that's the request we are making to the committee today, to approve that funding to enable us to carry on for another year. The report also covers where we are in terms of the development of the major project which David Kidney's referred to. Forgive me if councillors already know this, but we had approval from the National Lottery Heritage Fund to the main project some time ago, and they've provided a significant level of funding to enable us now to further develop our plans. And that's known as the development phase, or round one. And that's, as the report says, is well on track, with the intention of submitting a stage 2 or round 2 bid to the National Lottery Heritage Fund, hopefully by about August of this year. Working on the basis that will be approved by the National Lottery Heritage Fund, then round 2, stage 2 of the project, hopefully will get a start around about March, April of next year, and that's called the delivery phase, and that's where the significant spend that's been referred to will take place. Having said that, the development phase is not a cheap process, and we are grateful for the support that the committee's put into that, some £40,000 from the Highbury Trust and also from the City Council, and again that's covered in some detail in the report. So cutting to the chase, please would you approve a budget of 33,300 and approve the necessary arrangements for that grant to be paid in the usual way. But I'm very happy to deal with any questions.
Just one point. On page 12, why is the costs for the volunteer coordinator activity plan related costs increased so much?
Well, the volunteer coordinator's costs at the minute can be covered from the development phase and therefore funded from National Lottery Heritage Fund funds. There will be a period in this financial year between the time when we put in the the round 2 submission and its approval, when we will still want to have some volunteers working, particularly in the grounds, and that £2,000 covers the cost of the coordinator. The rest of his time in this coming financial year, as I say, will be met from National Lottery Heritage Fund grants. And the activity planner costs have increased because we plan more activities.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of questions. I know we've always supported this, and it's very good that we should. Other costs, 3,500, if you can share with us what that might be for. And can I ask, do you get information from the council on a weekly or regular basis of places where you can apply for funding? Because I know as a council, I get an update every Thursday, as we all do, of all the different places where you can apply for funding, and I just wondered if that information was shared with yourselves.
It isn't, but we are well sighted to the opportunities that are available to bid for additional funding. Our focus, of course, is now on the necessary match funding that will be required for the delivery phase of the project, and there we are talking about millions of pounds. The 3,500 other costs covers a range of things, including excuse me, the cost of running our meetings, as a contingency, as well, as you can see there. Sorry, carry on.
Oh, I'll just ask if there are any other questions from the table. Okay, so do we agree the report as is? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen, for your input.
Can I say, Chair, we're very grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillors. Been a pleasure to meet you.
Okay. The next item is hybrid accounts. Is there anything, Mike, is there anything further you want to add on the hybrid accounts? Or is that just for information? Yeah, it's gone. That was included in the, it's just a letter. Okay. So number 9, item 9 is the applications for grant funding. This does come under exempt, I believe, Sophia. Yeah, yes. So we turn off recording. If there's no members of the public.
Sorry, no, the hybrid accounts, one part's public and there's an exempt attachment.
Yes, so I'm on to number 9, applications for grant funding.
Yeah, sorry, that one's public, but the only thing that's private is the applicant. Oh, you're on the last one. Yeah. Okay, yes, sorry. I'll just publish that. Stop recording.
Then personal private information for town. Right.
Chair, can I ask a question?
Yes, yes.
Hybrid accounts, is there there's an accounts, we need to approve the accounts for Highbury?
Yeah, that's separate.
And the second point, I'm not too sure why the 2 agenda items lower down on the exempt appendix.
No, I wasn't sure. I just assumed there was something that was private within it. People wanted it here. Well, you will find the British, you're quite right. The hybrid trusted accounts letter of representation, we do have to formally agree those.
Yeah, I think Elaine is here to present that report. Is that correct, Elaine?
Elaine,
that's correct. Thank you.
Right, we're back on track. Okay, item 9.
Thank you. So this is under the public agenda. You're asked to approve both the hybrid trust accounts for the year ending 31st March 21, which have been audited by UHY Hacker Young, and the letter of representation to the auditors in respect to the charity and the accounts. And you're also asked to give authority for the chair of this committee to sign the accounts and letter. And the accounts will then be loaded into the charity's website. Key issues to note in respect to the accounts: the profit in 2021 was 25,000 compared to a prior year loss of 6,000. At 31st of March 21, unrestricted funds amounted to 251,000 and investment properties had a value of 1.8 million. There's been no valuation of the land and buildings during the last 8 years, which is in excess of the City Council's 5-year target, and Birmingham City Council officers are not aware of any reason why the letter of representation cannot be signed.
Do we formally agree those? Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Moving back to item 9.
Chair, should I ask her to record it?
That was open, that was in public, that item, but the accounts.
Okay. And is the next one private now?
Well, you put that it's exempt, why is it exempt?
I was just told by the director, Alison, that it should be exempt.
Okay, well that's fair enough, then stop recording now on those. Okay, the live stream supports, okay, thank you very much.
Chair,
Okay.
I don't understand why it's exempt.
No, I was asking, is that it?
It's an application for grant funding from the committee, so that should be in the public domain. There's no reason for it to be exempt. There's no commercially sensitive information. There's no confidential information in the 2 reports, so they need to be
If the committee,
in public.
I will overturn the recommendation from the director and we resume it in public. Do the committee agree? Because I can't see a reason why it would be exempt. Okay, so if you could arrange that. Let me know when. Of course, yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Okay, so the first application is from the Fruit and Nut Village. I think we have anybody here to speak on it, do we? So if you've read the application, I'm sure you've all read it. If there's any questions, it's pretty self-explanatory. This members of the committee will know that it's a pot of money we do have that we can give out to applications when they come in. Same for new members that it's community applications. Okay. Rajesh.
Yeah, a couple of questions. I suppose from not so much on the application itself, but it's on the administration. Firstly, how are if it is approved, then how will due diligence checks be undertaken in relation to any payments, and also the sum, the value is quite high as well. It's the maximum. So I just wanted to ask a few questions of whoever was presenting the report.
Yeah. So if there's anybody coming to talk on that, are there reports?
It was just Elaine. I think she's covering for the director today.
Elaine, you speaking on the Fruit and Nut Village application?
I have, Alison Jarrett has written the reports, and I'm just asking her about whether they need to be kept in private. So I haven't got the detail on the reports. All I've got, I can take anything back if you've got any queries.
We can't agree them if our questions aren't answered.
So I'm sorry, what was the particular question? I couldn't quite hear it.
I think trustees need to be able to ask questions of the applicant.
Yeah.
I know they filled in a form, but sometimes you can't get everything onto a form.
And it's too much money to just.
And £10,000 is the maximum. So
yeah,
if an applicant is asking for £10,000, they should really be able to answer some questions from trustees, at least.
So if we have no one here, I think we're going to have to postpone this to the next meeting.
That's fine, Chair.
Yeah, okay, agreed?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay. And so if we could press on the applicants, whoever it is, wish to answer the questions, we need somebody here to answer. Okay. That was the only, one we've got in, isn't it? No application, that's it, girls' environmental project, that was two. The applications by councillors Davis and Iro for funding to set up girls' environmental project. That's again for the total 10,000, which in itself is fine, but again, we need people to be here to answer the questions. So when you contact the applicants after the meeting, Sophia, could you say the reason it's been postponed is that we need the ability to ask questions? And obviously we're not turning them down.
Yeah.
We are wishing to have the opportunity to ask questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Chair, I think with the second application, can I just make a comment?
Okay.
Yeah, the second application again, it's not to an organisation, but to an unincorporated organisation, which I don't think has even been created yet.
You have stopped that in other areas that we haven't allowed that, so I think that would be question mark over that anyway, in the case of coming to us when you are.
Yeah, I think, and there's no intention to set up any kind of incorporated organisation. So they're asking for £10,000 to go to a group of individuals who we're not aware of, and there'll be no accounts, no reporting, no real governance now or in the future. So that was a bit of a concern.
Yes, I think it is. I think we should still have them here to answer the questions at the next meeting, and
Yes.
then maybe they can have it impressed on them the importance.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Rajesh, for that. Okay, is there any other urgent business anybody wishes to raise? No. And do you agree authority for me to act between meetings?
No.
Okay. I thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.